here's the deal. The purpose of this is to kind of show you how to VOD review yourself, the things that you kind of want to look out for. And we're just going to use Virtus Pro as an example. So the three main things that you can VOD review are your comms, your position, and your utility. So abilities, grenades, all that shit. Right. Now, the thing is, though, I put it in this order because each of these becomes more and more specific the further you go down the list, right? It becomes more situational. Like position could be macro, micro, right? But the thing is, though, comms are applicable to every single situation. Obviously, some of this is situational as well. But with legend bands, utility becomes more specific. Position comes down to your POI, like on a macro level, right? And same actually with utility as well, also with legend bands. But your comms will always be present. Yeah. Okay. So as soon as they stabilize, like the first thing they talk about is like their threats. Like this is something that just like you just got to do every single time. You have to talk about one, what is your biggest threat? This helps you prioritize. This isn't enough, you have to talk about some sort of plan, like how you're going to handle it. I kind of like break this down into if statements, like if they push us, do this, or get ready to fight, etc. Which is what Lou did, which is a really good comm.
Can we go through the walls?
It's like prepping his team.
But we're blind on the other side. Sure, we can. Are you sure you can't? Is anywhere on this wall?
I love that like Lou is like throwing out ideas and then they're just having a conversation here.
Blind. It's over there, bro.
Well, that's there. They're still in there. They're still in here, guys.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting no.
So it's not just people like throwing out. It's not just people throwing out information like of where the enemies are. Like we're also throwing out ideas. But again, the first thing that they ever did was establish what the biggest threat was, which was our team. But it was also like as soon as they stabilize, they talk about their biggest threat, how they're going to handle them, if they're going to handle them, and then immediately after they just start throwing out ideas, right, about what they're going to do, but they still like again like the most important thing is to just talk about that threat.
Oh, like place attack threat. I mean.
Again, we're just like throwing out ideas. We're anticipating that threat. Yeah. Like we had like the idea, like VP has this idea of like ratting, which is like at first seems like a good idea, and they backtrack on it because they just kind of go through like a logic chain of like why it wouldn't work. But like this is something I just see a lot of teams or hear a lot of teams just like not do at all. Again, just like throw out ideas and then kind of like see if it works. They have a lot of time here.
We play 6. We play 2 up here, maybe.
Yeah. We should do that. We should play 2 here. Someone hacks through. It's really bad.
I want to hear this. Now this is off.
Oh, no, guys. Yeah. Sliding. Yep. Aim for me, guys. I live. Yeah, I live. I cleared outside.
I'm the wall.
All the cards. Going back.
I'm living. I'm going to the other building, guys. Going.
Yep.
Immediate. Like I love how like I'm not going to talk about like positional stuff right here. Again, we're just focused mostly on comms, but I do want to highlight like that their ability, like their first response is like to play their life rather than to like stall and fight, right? Like Slayer's on the outside, he can't do anything. This is going to be a 2v3, and like their first instinct is like to play their life. Even like a lot of like pro league, like a lot of like bottom pro league, like bottom 10 pro league teams will have like a 3-second window where they don't do that, like your response just has to be immediate.
Yep, aim for me, guys. I live. Yeah, I live. I cleared outside. Fine.
I'm the wall.
All the cards. Going back.
I'm living. I'm going to the other building.
Man, Zach like LOS is here so well.
Guys, going.
Yeah, I'm batting through.
I don't like that they wasted all, but you know what I mean.
I need some rest. I'm
didn't have to
9-5
do
now.
that.
I'm putting it all down here. Speaking out.
A lot of this could have been prevented as well. Like if like I'm glad that they were talking about stuff here. But, like yeah, one of the things that you should talk about, okay, this is how they can kind of like how do you improve your comms, right? Like they hold the space here. You talked about your biggest threat, right? You talked about your biggest threat, your BT. You have your plan, right? Which is kind of like your if statements. But your if statements should also include like your position and your utility. Like these are the two first things you should be talking about, right? Like, okay, if they come here, like our biggest threat is this, right? Like that choke. If a team comes from the choke, like how do you handle that? Do you stay there or do you give up your position, right? So they talked about their biggest threat over here, but they didn't do that here, right? They were talking about like doing a rat play, but as soon as that rat play was no longer viable, they still needed to like, okay, so they had the rat play, right? We'll do like a little checklist loop, right? Rat play. But so they had their plan, but as soon as the rat play was like no longer a play, they needed to go back and figure out what their position was going to be and what utility they're going to use or not use, right? So what's their positioning if a threat comes? Like if a threat comes from A, they need to talk about they just need to go back again. Like if you listen to these comms, like everything was good, but then like everything was good up until they stopped talking about it.
Oh my guys, oh my god. Rat
Like,
and not let people queue through our shit though. We cannot let people use that queue. You know what I mean? The answer's just don't rat. Yeah, I don't.
Okay, yeah. So the answer is don't rat. All right, cool. So we've figured out that that's not a good plan. Okay, what is a good plan, right? Okay, let's not do that. But what do we do now, right? And the easy way to do that is like, what do we do with our position, right? And what do we do with our utilities? That's it. There's a couple other things you can kind of go through, but like these are the two main ones, kind of like the two main heuristics. Holy fuck, I'm tired. My brain is fried. But yeah, like they already figured out what they're not going to do. Just go back through that again. Like, do we give up the space? Which is what they end up doing, right? But if that's the case, then Lou needs to play back here, right? Like, there's no reason for Lou to be up there. Because if they had like gone through that logic chain again, if they had gone to like what their position and utility is going to be, because they already figured out what they're not going to do, right? Not do. But they also need to figure out what they're going to do. You know, which is the positioning and then utility. Why do I keep doing that? Fuck me. I'm retarded. So, yeah. They already figured out what they're not going to do. Check. Cool. Fine. But they didn't do this. How are we going to handle our position? How are we going to handle our utility? Right? And they didn't do that. And so Lou ended up taking a bunch of damage for free. And like if my team, you know, was a bit more coordinated to hit more shots, Lou could have died here. But if VP just like talked, like went through that positioning again, like Lou just needs to be here. Like Zach could have just said, okay, you just need to be here then. If we're not gonna do that, you need to be here. Right? We just need to give up our space. Right? In fact, we don't even need this building. Yeah. Or they could say we're gonna hold this building. We can use you as bait or whatever. Like Slayer come here, we're gonna fight this out. I don't fucking know. Like whatever the plan is, but there is no plan right now. But does that is that confusing to anybody? Right? Like what happened? This is what happened. Like in this order, right? I feel like I don't know if I'm like kind of repeating myself too much, but VP they stabilized, right? They stabilized their position. They talked about their biggest threat, their BT, their biggest threat. And then when they're going through their plan, right, which is to rat, the third thing is they're like, oh, we're going to do a rat play. And then they're like, we're not going to do a rat play. No rat. But then that also just means that they don't have no rate. Holy shit. Then they just don't no plan, right? Like, I'm glad that they did all of this, right? But then they just kind of went silent as soon as like they didn't have a plan. So, in my opinion, they should have just okay, yeah. They were like, okay, that's not the bit. That's basically what we're not going to do. We just need to figure out what we are going to do.
They're fighting, or they get into
We have
attack right here, and so you don't have to like waste our time.
This
I love that. You hear that? Like, like they're going through if statements, right? Like, listen to these comms.
Shoot us on the TP.
yeah.
Some point,
Yeah,
right?
he will, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of bad then. We'll just run it.
Well, I mean, he'll just shoot it, right? There's no way I mean, if they fight, they're not going to have to be able to rat him.
If they fight, they're not going to be able to do this, right? So we're all just having conversations.
Right?
Yeah, they're not going to shoot us on the TP.
Yeah. But that's like the best place I could put it without without showing them our hand and letting them know I was giving them.
Yeah. So Lou's talking about utility here and positioning.
They can't keep this door. They can't use this door. So if anything happens that we need to like third something as they're fighting, or they get into
We have
attack right here, and so
Okay.
we don't have to like waste.
That's a great comm from Slayer. Holy shit. I don't know that much about Slayer, except for he got reamed out by Sweet for like 15 minutes unnecessarily. But
All right.
This ball right here is also full save. Like, if we can get against that wall, we can live, by the way.
cool. Like, dude, this is so cool. Like, they're all talking about different things, but not in a separate way. Like, they're all very cohesive. Like, Lou is talking about like their next play, right? Slayer's talking about their threats. He's not just talking about what their threats are, but he is also talking about like how we're going to handle them, right? That includes both position and utility. So he's like done all of that. And then Zach is also thinking about his next play, Lou was more focused on utility, right? And Zach is more focused on position. This is really good stuff. It's like good position.
Like in
good
the corner against the wall in Newcastle setup. Newcastle setup.
I don't know what we would get there, but
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, we can also run past
I
their
love
building.
that. I don't
we
know.
can take
Like,
that.
they're both like, I don't know, but they're like trying to figure it out, right? Like, again, I tweeted about this the other day. I have them like pre-scheduled, but like you don't need to have like a perfect answer. You just need to kind of get the conversation started.
TP cat wall across, just a beeline to everything. Yeah. Because it's two teams at the back of the map.
Yeah, if these guys like stick together like for a long time, you know what I mean, and they're just like really purposeful about improving, which Zach has, by the way. Like, he's probably like improved the most, like out of any of the NA IGLs over the past couple of years, yeah. But if they stick together, like their level of trust on this team is so high. So in this roster mania, I really hope like nobody gets dropped. At least from the comms. Like I haven't really watched their positioning or their fighting or anything like that. But just from their comms alone, this is like
There's not really anywhere you can slam.
yeah.
all right, cool. So
How are we doing on
stabilizing. I want to see what they're like.
Nobody can see us.
I want to hear their
Yeah, they're trying to
comms
go
for
around.
this
They went
rotation.
through the fucking wall.
That's really- that's really nice.
Should we hold it? They might come back.
Just retake your door, I think.
Just retake your
High
turn.
ground team.
Do you hear that? Okay, so that's really cool. Okay, so this is like a very simple concept, but your abilities are not your abilities. They're the team abilities, right? So Slayer has has the door perk, right? Or, has the ability to like take doors. And Zach, obviously he's the IGL. It's like you can like retake the door or whatever, like, or take the door. But this is something that a lot of like teams don't do, even like pros don't do, which is like calm your team's abilities, right? Smoke here, port here, wall. I don't know. I don't fucking know. But like, yeah, or Ash TP here. Like, people don't do that. They just assume that their teammates are can read their mind. But this is why I say like it's both like an FPS and like a excuse me. I can't even think right now. My brain's fucking fried. But RTS, real-time strategy game. So if you think about it from like a bird's eye perspective, like you're controlling all of these. Right? But the point is like just use your teammates' abilities.
That's not the
Bitch Red's over here.
You don't have like direct access to it, but you can just tell your teammates
Bitch
what
Red's
to
over
do.
here. Yeah.
We take this building. It disappeared. They might come back, bro.
Yeah, they
To comms, great comms by Slayer, right? Like he's anticipating that they might come back too.
Wow, it's really safe. I'm pretty sure.
Like
These guys.
I don't know. This is something that, like, okay, that alone tells me a lot about Slayer's like mentality. A lot of people, a lot of players and pros just aren't paranoid enough in the game, and they don't respect the threats around them well enough, right? In fact, like you can actually see this. This is something like my team had an issue with for a while. Is that in lower quality lobbies, meaning like ring 215 squads, right? Like basically, like when there are less people in the lobby, a lot of players have a difficult time respecting threats around them because they're not anticipating those threats, right? So, like when you're in a low quality lobby and you have not a lot of people around you, you have to sharpen that sword. You know what I mean? You have to sharpen that sense of anticipating threats, just like Slayer did, right? Like, hey, they might come back this way, right? Like, there are some people, they're very amateur, even pro players who can only see the threats that are apparent and in front of them, and you can only go so far with that. You know, you can get to like fucking like bottom pro league with that level of awareness, but if you can't anticipate threats beyond what you see, then you're never going to make like top 10 or top 5 in your region, or let alone finals.
You have to run into us, I'm pretty sure.
I'm worried about your top 10, Blue.
Yeah, these guys have to run into us. Like over here, this res.
Guys, I'm gonna.
You guys see where I am? Yeah, they are. We're here.
I'm gonna start going to our slot. Like,
They're
guys,
walling left.
Yeah, they can't. Yeah.
you
Exactly.
guys can take TVs if you want.
On me. I didn't take TV.
Take it.
Good.
I'm good.
Are they pushing us?
No, they're behind us. It's the main door. They came back around. I'm coming.
We need to turn and burn.
Turns
So,
are
we're fine. We just need to go to our spot.
good.
I'm ready.
I love this from Zach. We just need to do this, right? I call this framing. I just like had a talk about this with like 3 of my students who are IGLs for the past week, but I call this framing, and I call it framing rather than like something else because like basically framing is just telling as the IGL, you just say this is what we're doing. What are we doing? Right? Like right now in this moment, and you're updating your team in that moment. Like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is the only thing that we're doing. I need you to focus on this kind of a thing. And we'll go back and listen to this again. Why is this so important? The reason why this is important because saying what we are doing will change your teammates' behavior, right? So the first thing he said that we were going to do was turn and burn, right? But then he changed that to we just need to get to our spot. Go to spot, right? But if he didn't say number 2, right? Let's hypothesize and say if he didn't say it number 2 at all, if he didn't update his teammates, right? They still would have been in the frame of mind of turn and burn, right? They still would have been looking in this direction rather than prioritizing going to their position. So what that means is that there would have been a chance that Slayer and Lou would have like walked out here, you know, or gone over here and like kept looking in this position rather than going to here. So basically, like just as the IGL, saying what you're doing, updating your team frames your players' behavior and it changes their behavior, right? Just by saying simply what we're
I'm
doing.
in the open.
They're fighting. Look at the guys. Look at them.
Yeah, well,
Fight to the right. Fight to the right.
I'm batting. I'm
I'm gonna attack. I don't want to risk any of us getting on.
There's
We're gonna get mirrored in the back. We need to wipe in front of us and get mirrored in the back.
We need to wipe in front of us. We're getting mirrored in the back. So he does both things. He does, what are we doing? Who do we need to be aware of? Right? Like, what is it?
Mingle.
Save on me, guys.
He's like multitasking right now, which is insane.
We need to worry about our back, guys.
Yeah.
I can.
So he's like changing the priorities like constantly. Like his priority before he put the wall down was like we need to fight forward, but as soon as he got the wall down and they reset, like we need to look at our back.
To the catwalk.
Yeah.
Like he's going through this process, but like of like what we're doing, but he's resetting. He's constantly updating. It like, you know, from an amateur's perspective, it might seem like he's indecisive. He's actually very decisive, because he's just updating his teammates on what the plan is based off of his like new information, right? His old information was that, you know, his heals were down, his teammates' health was low, right? And then they didn't have a spot that like on the map that was like stable. And then as soon as he stabilized with his ult, right, and his Q, then he had new information and he had like new health. And so they had a different priority.
No,
Right.
yeah, on the headers. Don't first.
Right side.
Don't give an opening.
That was a good. Don't give an opening. Oh God, I want to hear more don't from IGLs. Like, don't do this. Like, sometimes your biggest threat isn't the enemy; it's like you exposing yourself to the enemy, right? Like, don't go down. Is like going down is going to be your biggest threat.
Catwalk. We can't on the wall. Go on the other side of it temporarily. Wait up and eggs.
They're
All
fighting.
intact. We can
Man, Zach is such a good IGL. Fuck me.
inside the wall really quick and turtle.
They're hard fighting here.
Again, I'm not going to go over positional stuff, but we're just going over guns right now.
Attack.
Let's see here.
I don't think they know.
They're Moby rising on the right. I'm going now. Just keep going.
I mean, we're just getting all the way into zone.
Yeah.
What's bad about this?
Can we just triple rat?
What's bad? What's bad about this? It's such a funny example.
I think this is good. Why is this
Yeah.
bad? Explain to us why is this
No,
bad.
can see us.
Okay, so explain to us why this is bad. By the way, like from a logic perspective, this is called fuck me. Falsification, right? Like is this falsifiable? So instead of trying to like this is kind of like a tangent, but like everyone's first instinct is to have a theory and then they look for ways to reinforce that theory. But your first, like the most effective thing that you should do is like how like is to try to destroy your theory, right? Like, okay, this is my plan, like why is this plan bad, right? Like that's infinitely more effective than saying why is this plan good. You know, obviously situational, but yeah, this like that's a really interesting comm, and it gives me a lot of insight into how Zach's brain works. And I did not expect him to have like falsification as a default for how he thinks. That's really, really interesting.
I need to get wall up.
Guys, they will
Who's
fight.
zone?
They
Who's
will
on
fight
zone?
right here.
Oh fuck.
I don't.
I mean, we're in zone. You guys understand right here, like on us. We are literally in zone, right on that corner.
Dude, he's saying we're in zone. He sounds like a dude who's just like who calls his best friend when he's about to get laid, you know, like the girl's like in the bathroom like getting like fresh and ready, and he's like in the bed. He's like, bro, I'm with my crush, and she wants to have sex with me. And then your friend's just like, yeah, go for it, bro. He sounds so excited.
Oh,
They need to establish what their biggest threat is. Like,
well, it's really fucking bad, but
they've identified like the 3 different threats that they have, but they need to prioritize one of these.
We're in here.
Attack
We're in on
assignment.
me. We're in on me. They're behind us, guys. That's right.
Yeah, like the one behind them is their biggest threat. Why? Because these guys have a good position and they're not going to double swing and sandwich themselves, because there's a team over here, right? There's team A, this is team B, and then there's like team C. Team C is their biggest threat, right? But B's not going to come to A, like come here to kill VP, because they're going to position themselves between A and B, between A and VP, right? Which is like not good. So like they're like that, like them swinging is like kind of like a lower possibility, but the most immediate like possibility is this. So again, like as soon as you stabilize, as soon as you have a spot, you need to go through that cycle again, like go through that checklist of like, what is our biggest threat? What is our plan? You know, if you notice, they didn't really do that. They're kind of just like, you need to do that every fucking time, even if it lasts like 1 or 2 seconds. Not every time. Obviously, there are exceptions, but
We don't want to fight here though. We should bring
like
out
this is a consequence. Like this other team walking up on them like this, you know, is a consequence of like Zach. Well, not just Zach, but like the entire team not going through that checklist of like biggest threat plan. Okay, in terms of comms, one of the most useful comms to identify your biggest threat. This is like a cheat code, by the way, right? Like the easiest threat that you can identify if you don't know which one to identify is your mirror. By the way, I'm not a fan of the word mirror, at least is how it's being used as a definition, right? But anyways, okay, so let's say this is point A to point B, right? VP is currently at point B, right? All they have to do is just say, care the mirror. Basically saying, watch out for somebody doing exactly what we did, right? That can be your biggest threat. And most often it is your biggest threat, right? Who actually does this really well? Obviously Falcons, but Al-Qadsiya does this really well. Strafing Flame. Actually, almost everybody on that team identifies like a mirror really, really well, like a mirror threat. Like almost every time. They're like, care the mirror, you know, watch out for somebody doing what we just did, right? Especially if it's like a TP, like a third party or something like that. So like this, like there's a point A over here. This is point B, you know, like this is a threat, especially if you're on edge of zone, like clearing this like gives you more control over space. Again, we're going to like talk about positioning later. Like I'll go over like control and options, kind of like those heuristics, but
We're in on me. We're in on me. They're behind us, guys.
right now we're just going over comms.
They're on us.
But like this is a consequence again of them not talking about this kind of stuff. I know it seems like I'm kind of like overthinking about this stuff, but like we saw what it looked like when and what it sounded like when they went through these steps, and now we're seeing the consequences of them not going through those steps at all. Is it a guarantee that they could have cleared this like, you know, before, you know, that like this wouldn't have happened? No. But there is a higher chance, and like, and they at least would have been on the same page about how they were going to handle this. Maybe they would have thrown out 1 or 2 ideas about to make it really punishing for the other team to push them, right? Was this preventable? I don't know. It's hard to say, but you know, I think they could have put up a better fight. They could have positioned their wall better to deal with this threat, right? To help them stall it out more. And maybe they could have been more proactive with punishing that team, right? But instead, we're focused on this, like A and B, when we should have focused on C, which is their biggest threat. So we'll go to the next game.